Well, I want to thank you for taking time to attend our next video workshop. The title of this workshop is Discovering Your True Purpose for Money. Now, there's a workbook that goes along with this video educational class, and make sure you have access to that workbook because I'm going to be referring to some pages in it, and I think it would be very helpful if you were able to follow along. Well, let's go ahead and get started here today. Have you ever wanted a new car, for example? And you find yourself constantly thinking about, boy, I just can't wait till I get that new car. Or maybe it was something else that you wanted, a new house, a new job, but there's something that you really wanted and you worked for it and you thought, when I get that new car, that new house, I'm just going to really be happy. Things are going to be great. And then you get that new car or you get that new house. And things are really nice for a while. I'm thinking like when I first graduated from law school, I really wanted an Audi, and I went to the car dealer and I found someone who had just turned in an Audi 6 lease. The car was 2 years old. It was beautiful, black exterior, camel leather interior, and I bought it. And I was just ecstatic. Well, you know, I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month. But then that happiness began to fade, and I realized it's just pretty shallow and short-lived. But today we're going to talk about the human experience. My guess is I'm not the only person who's had that experience, and we're going to talk about how it impacts our lives and how it impacts even our investing. So, thank you again, and let's get started here. There's this very interesting phenomenon that I'm going to call the enigmatic circle of wealth. And how it starts is that we have this fear that we just aren't going to have enough, and we compare ourselves to our neighbors, and we want to make sure that we have absolutely enough to survive. And what happens is we get enough to survive, but that's not enough because then we want to go beyond that, not just what we need to survive, but also the things that we want, that we don't really need to survive, but that we just want them, and because we think they'll make us happy, and we obtain them. And as in my example with my car that I bought after law school, there's a temporary relief and exuberance and driving out of the parking lot in that for me what was a new car, was a beautiful car, and I think that wow, I've arrived. But what happens next? As we compare ourselves either to our neighbors, or a year or two goes by and now they have a newer car with a bigger engine, or maybe they have some new electronic features on it, and we begin to compare and we begin to realize, wow, I'm really not that happy with this, and the whole cycle continues. Has that ever happened? Has that ever happened to anybody? I don't think I'm the only one, but the result is there's no fulfillment, and there's a, a lack, no peace of mind. And if you look on page 4 of your workbook, you'll be able to follow along and hear what I'm talking about. Because I think a lot of us have this misconception, and sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious, is that the more money we have, then there'll be more happiness. But I've been very fortunate as a financial advisor. I work with people, a lot of people that have a lot of money, and some are very happy and some are not, and people that have modest sums of money, and some are happy and some are not. So there's something else going on there. There's not a direct relationship to how much money you have and how happy you are. And we all know and we all say that money can't buy happiness. But yet, ironically, we spend most of our time, most of our energy, many of us anyway, life's energy and life's time thinking and worrying and accumulating money. So there's something really interesting going on here. Well, how does that impact what we really want to talk about today is our investing life and our saving for our and our family's future. Well, there's also the enigmatic circle of investing, and it functions kind of the same as the enigmatic circle of wealth, but there's this survivorship, stress in investing. We're trying to invest, we're trying to save. We sometimes compare ourselves to people around us. How much are they saving? What's their rate of return? And we begin to be successful in that for a while, and then we want more and we want more. And I've worked with some clients who have had a very prudent investment philosophy, and then there some opportunity comes along the way, and they're willing to gamble and speculate with that because they're just not happy with the rate of returns they're getting, and they're not able to really truly understand how much risk they're taking on. Sometimes they're successful, hopefully they will be, but very often they're not. And so they begin to obtain our goals in investing, as I said, and then we have this temporary period of relief and exuberance, and then we begin to compare ourselves. A couple years ago, when gold was a commodity that was just, you know, experiencing quite a lot of gains in the market, and there was lots of talk about it on the TV show, and clients that wanted to suddenly, you know, jettison their prudent investment philosophy and invest in gold. And it was sometimes difficult to talk to them and to show them what that action would do to their prudent investment philosophy. But that goal is, if you want to not feel that you're being left behind and you listen to the media, then sometimes clients are coaxed into gambling and speculating with their money. And of course, we don't want that to happen. So if you begin and look at your investment life like this, it's going to do the same thing that the enigmatic circle of wealth does to people. You're left with no fulfillment, and what you really want is this feeling of abundance and feeling of peace of mind as it pertains to your investing. Often this can undermine those goals you have for yourself. So let's begin to dig a little deeper and see what's the cause of this, and is there anything we can do about it as humans and as investment people. So how do we escape this enigmatic circle, whether it's the enigmatic circle of life or the enigmatic circle of wealth, of investing? And it has to do with getting in an alignment your internal world and your external world. So, can you think of a time in your life when you maybe fell into the trap that I've been describing? Now, if we were in an actual live workshop, we'd be able to actually share that. But I would encourage you that if you'd like to send me an email or contact me, reach out to me. I would be really interesting to know your thoughts on this. Maybe you fell into the trap. I told you about a car, my car, that I wanted to have after law school. I've heard people talk to me about, the house. Even people that love to golf, if they could just get this really, really high-end set of customized golf clubs, or even sunglasses. Someone was telling me about a pair of sunglasses that were thousands of dollars, and if they had that pair of sunglasses, then they really felt that they would be happy. But there's this dissonance between the internal value and the external behavior, and whenever we have this dissonance, it's going to create stress and confusion and anxiety. For example, if you tell me that your value that you want in your life is security for you and your family, but then you use your funds to engage in speculative investing, then that is going to cause a lot of stress and confusion and anxiety. Now, is it possible, do you think, can we talk today about how do we bring into alignment or into one-ment your internal value and your external behavior, so that there's a consistency? If you value security, for example, and you act in concert, or you're consistent with that internal value, your external actions, then that is going to be a way that you can move toward fulfillment and move toward this journey towards investing peace of mind. I'll share with you an example for myself where my internal and external worlds were not in alignment. So if you were to ask me, when I was still practicing law, if you were to ask me, what value is very important to you and what do you value, in your life, I would have said without hesitation, my family, my wife. At that time, I just had one child. I now have two. By the time I was at my wife and my daughter, that is what I value. But my behavior was very different. I was working 75, 80 hours a week at a law firm, and I justified that by saying, well, I'm doing this for my family. Well, when you work that much, it actually can wreak havoc on your family. And so my external and my internal worlds were not in alignment. And I'm going to ask you if you can think of a time in your life where there was this dissonance between your internal and your internal world, your value system that you say that you have, and your external world, the behavior that you do. Now, feel free to stop this if you need to think about it for a while or come back or make a note, but it's very important that you actually just don't listen to me, but you actually engage in this exercise with me. And it'd be very, very helpful. And as I said, I'd love to hear from you and what your ideas as we go through this exercise together. So I want to go to what I would call the first question. Now, all of us probably remember either reading in high school or watching the movie The Christmas Story. Now, remember in The Christmas Story, there's three ghosts that visit Ebenezer Scrooge. I believe the first is the ghost of Christmas present. I think the second is the ghost of Christmas past, or maybe it's the other way around. But the last one is the ghost of Christmas future, and he takes him to his end of his life, and he shows him what it will be like if he continues on this path, if he doesn't make some changes to his life. And of course, that's the catalyst that finally makes Ebenezer Scrooge, make very dramatic changes in his life. And I want to ask you the same question. This question number one, the Dickens question. So, if you were at the end of your life, or if I were at the end of my life, because I'm doing this exercise as well, and I've done it before, what would have to happen for you to be able to say that you have lived a life without regret? This is a deep question, right? It's an important question, though. So basically, I'm asking you to come with me on a journey to the end of your life, and I'm asking you to look back at your life, and I'm asking you to tell me what would have to happen for you to be able to look back on your life and say, I've lived a life without regret. So, as I said, I've done this exercise before, and I have come up with several responses to this. They're all similar, depending on when I ask myself this question, but there's also some differences, some slight differences in them. But I always say something like, I'd really want my family to know that they were loved unconditionally, and I want to be able to see or to say that I've made a difference, a positive difference, I should say, a positive difference in the lives of those people that I have come in contact with. I think if I can say those two things, I will feel that I'd be able to say that I lived my life without regret. Now, I've done this exercise with lots of clients, and I'll just give you some ideas here of what you possibly could be thinking of to help you maybe prime the pump as you think about this question. But some people say, for example, I want my spouse to be financially independent and each of my two children to receive $50,000 in trust. That's another great response, of course. Some other ideas dealing with your family, maybe charities, education that you want to achieve, or maybe those that you want to educate, something you may want to accomplish in retirement, possessions, experiences. My wife and I love to travel, maybe certain places you want to travel. Quality of your life is directly related to health, and perhaps that's going to be something that's going to be very important as you come to terms with this first question I'm asking you: property or interests. So basically, I'd like you to turn to your workbook and look at these lists of words, and come up with some goals for me. What's a goal? A goal is an object or end that one strives to attain. And Bob Moad said that when we set exciting, worthwhile goals for ourselves, it's quite interesting, but they work in two ways. We work on them, and they work on us. So what this is telling us is the power of intention, the power of your mind, of your conscious mind, to focus and to create the path that you actually want to walk down as you move forward. So, on page 9 of your workbook, just take a few seconds here, and you can stop this video and come back to it. And I would like you to write down some responses. Don't need to think too much about this. The responses that come up first, those are probably the ones that are most true for you, and I'd write those down. And there's no right or wrong. Everyone has their own unique answer and response to the question. So, if you were at the end of your life, what would have to happen for you to be able to say that you've lived a life without regret? Write down as many things as you can. So, you have a list of goals. Now, what is underlining these goals? And normally that's a value. So, you have goals, and the reason those goals are important for you is because they're pointing to a deeper level, what we would call a value, that is actually behind the reason you want to achieve those goals. So, value, that which is desirable or worthy of esteem for its own sake, thing or quality having intrinsic worth, the principles or standards held or accepted by an individual. Now, on page 8, it's very interesting, but you'll see where there are place for you to write your goals and to give some thought to what do you think are the values that are underlining or that animating or that are actually holding up or propelling those goals that you have. And Henry David Thoreau, a great American philosopher and author, he said there is no value in life except what you choose to place upon it, and no happiness in any place except what you bring to it yourself. Now the good news is that we get to create ourselves for ourselves our own future. I guess the bad news, if you want to say it this way, is it's also up to us. There's no one we can blame. It's up to us to create our own future. Now, I'm not trying to make light of difficulties that all of us have in our life, but what we can't control those, but we can control how we think about them. And that's what I'm wanting you to begin this journey with me to talk about your goals and the values that underline them. Now, once you've had a chance to work on that a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of help as we go through here. But before moving on, make sure you take a few minutes to see for yourself what values you can see that are underlining these goals, and that will then take us on page 9 to the second question. The first question was the Dickens question. The second question is evaluating your goals. So I want you to rewrite your goals, as I said, and determine the underlying values. Then look at each goal and ask yourself, honestly evaluate why you want to achieve it. In other words, why is that goal important? So, for example, I'll give you some example words before we go on here. So, below is a sample of values often expressed. Now, this list is intended to only inspire you. It's not intended to limit your self-expression, so please feel free to add any word or words or concepts that are important to you and that speak to you. So, for some examples are security. This would be a value underlining a goal. For example, earlier, one of my clients had said, and I showed this to you on the slide, that the goal was financial independence for their spouse and $50,000 inheritance for each child in a trust. Now, what's the underlying value? Perhaps it's security. Maybe the person is valuing security, and that goal is a way to reach that value of security. Respect, peace of mind, joy, adventure, independence. So if we go back to that same example that I mentioned a few minutes ago about wanting to provide financial independence for the spouse, so that could be animated by the value of security. It could be animated by the value of independence. It could be animated by other values that may be on this list yet that we're going to look at here in a second. Comfort, freedom, energy, generosity, faith, happiness, honor, beauty, love, recognition, fulfillment, creativity, abundance, and dignity. So take a few minutes now and ask yourself, looking at my list of goals that I have for myself, those things that I must accomplish by the end of my life, so that when I get to the end of my life and I look back on my life, I'll be able to know that I have lived a life without regret. We look at those goals, peel back each of those goals and ask yourself, what value is the reason that I want to reach that goal. Because it's actually very, very powerful. Once you can clearly articulate the value, then you'll be able to understand what Roy Disney was saying when he said, it's not hard to make decisions when you know what your values are. So some people have trouble making decisions. And of course, I myself have been in that situation several times. You have competing goals, competing interests. But I have found it very, very helpful and very powerful that if I'm able to clearly articulate and name my true purpose for money and the value that's underlying that specific goal, it suddenly becomes very, very easy to make the right decision for myself and my family to move myself forward. And the beauty of this is that there's really not one right decision. It's the decision that's best for you and your family. For example, should you work extra overtime and pay off the house early, or should you not work as much and spend more time with your children? I don't know that any financial advisor or anyone can give you that answer, but I do know that the answer is deep within you, and you can uncover that for yourself, and then you can make whatever adjustments are necessary to bring your value system and your outer behaviors into alignment. And once they're in alignment, you'll begin to experience this sense of peace of mind and not of stress and anxiety and confusion. And to be able to make decisions consciously, to know why you're making them and that they're to further your goals and your values, there's absolutely nothing more empowering than that. And that's what I would like for anyone listening to this video, is to discover that for yourself. And no one can give that to you, only you can give it to yourself. So here's an example, what I'm talking about. So the Dickens question, if I were at the end of my life, what would have to happen for me to be able to say that I have lived a life without regret? To answer that first question was financial independence for my spouse and $50,000 inheritance for the children. Now, what value is expressed by this goal? I want security and independence. So it's actually two values, right? Security, independence. I've heard people express very similar goals, and then they tell me their value is love. Well, the beauty of this is those are all very powerful values, and they all can resonate deeply within us. You just have to get clear, maybe get quiet long enough that you can hear the value that's deep inside of you. So what I'd like you to do is as you're working through this with me, so for each of your goals, write down the value or values that are underlining that goal. And then once you have that done, we're going to identify the values that are most important to you. So of the values you've written, choose 3 that personify all values stated and express you the best. For example, what I'm trying to say is you may have 5, 6, 7, 8 values, and that's great, but can you find 3 that are the most inspiring to you? 3 that resonate, or they vibrate very deeply within your soul, and then you can just feel, yeah, those really speak to me. So give you a second to do that. So look at all your goals. You're going to have values that are underlying each of those goals, and I want you now to identify 3 of those values and circle them. The 3 that speak to you most profoundly, most deeply. Once you've done that, we're going to take the next step. You've circled those 3. We're now going to choose the most important value, the 1. Doesn't mean the other ones aren't important. It's just that this one is the one that speaks to you the most. The one that speaks to you the most, I should say. So now choose one, the one that could encompass the others. And I think there's a lot of power in saying it out loud. And if it sounds right, and if it feels like it's the right one, then just put a nice big star next to it. If that's not it, keep trying until you find the one. If you need to back up and maybe rethink some of the values you wrote underneath a specific goal, please feel free to do that. This is not a timed exam. You have lots of time to think about it, and the time thinking about it can be very, very powerful in helping you come up with the value that's going to most inspire you. Okay, so you have your goals, you have your list of values, you've circled those three values that are most inspiring to you, and now you're going to read aloud each of those three values that you've circled and identified as speaking to you on a very profound level, and you're going to find the one that you think encompasses all the values and that personifies exactly who you are. And for each of us, that's something different, and only you can really decide and choose what that is. And once that's done, we're going to turn to page 11, and that's going to take us to the third question. So, picture yourself at the end of your days. You've accomplished all of your goals, every goal on the workbook that you've written, and you've expressed every one of your values. Now, in one word, how do you feel? And then write your one word where indicated on page 11. For some people, they feel complete. I've heard other people say, I feel love. Other people say, I feel gratitude. But whatever you write there, let it come from you and let it be the result of you getting very clear about what your goals are and what the values are that support and animate those goals, and then the values that most profoundly personify who you as a person, who you as a human, who you as a human being, who you are. And then that's going to take us to what is often a very, very fun experience if we were experiencing this together in a workshop. And I offer this workshop periodically at my office, so you're more than welcome to attend this workshop in person. And I've done this exercise on numerous occasions. And although there are certainly similarities that run through my thinking every time I do this activity, there's also much that I discover and learn about myself every time I do this activity. Kind of like the layers of an onion. You keep peeling the onion back. It's still an onion, but we are getting to deeper levels of the onion. So I'd like you to craft your statement here. So begin with, my true purpose for money is. That's how you would begin. And then utilize the single value word that best expresses all of your values. You know, that one value that you put the star next to. Maybe that's the right one, or maybe now that you've thought about it more, you need to go back and rethink that. But utilize the single value word that best expresses all of your values, that encompasses all of your goals, and that best personifies who you are, and that will animate your decision making and the steps that you take as you move forward in your life. But that's your answer to the evaluating your goals question that we worked on. And your statement may simply include the opening phrase, my true purpose for money is, with your value word. My true purpose for money is love. My true purpose for money is gratitude. My true purpose for money is security. And it's very, very, very helpful to be able to articulate clearly what your true purpose for money is. I'm going to give you a little story that was extremely helpful to me a long time ago when I was working with a client, and it's a great story. I have permission to discuss this on the video with my client, but my client was an amazing woman. She was a single mom. She was a teacher. She just did a fantastic job in saving for her retirement, taking care of her son, helping him get an education. Just an amazing person to work with. But we did this exercise, and she came up to the conclusion, to the realization that her true purpose for money was security. Of course, that made a lot of sense, and I could certainly see that value exhibiting in her life and life of her family for the time that I had known her. And she came to me one day and said that her son, who was a recent graduate from a culinary institute, wanted to open up a restaurant. And of course, opening a restaurant is very difficult, need a lot of capital, and she wanted to use the money in her retirement account to help him with the restaurant. And she asked me, "Can I do that?" And I said, "Well, first, that's the wrong question. Of course, you can. It's your money. You've worked hard for it. You have absolute and total control over it. But may I ask you a different question?" And she said, "Of course." And I said, "Is this action, is it consistent with your true purpose for money?" And she said, "Well, my true purpose for money is security." And I said, "Yes, I know, I remember." And it is absolutely no indication of your son's abilities, and it's no indication of your son's work ethic. But the majority of restaurants that start, new restaurants that start, do you know what happens to them? And she said, "Well, I think a lot of them fail, don't they?" And I said, "Yes, they do." And I said, "If your true purpose for money is security, then what you could very well be doing is undermining your security and security for of your son, if you were to take your money from your retirement and assist him in this endeavor." She gave a lot of thought to it, and of course it was a very difficult decision because she loved her son and she wanted to help him. And because of this, the great relationship she had with her son, we actually brought her son into the picture, and we were able to find other means of funding and not to put his mom in that particular difficult situation. And unfortunately, as the story unfolded a few years later, it's very, very common for restaurants. The restaurant began to have experienced some financial problems. Um, and at this time, the mom was able, because of her willingness to have her inner actions and her outer actions and her inner values to be consistent, she was in a very strong financial position, and she was able to help him and help stabilize his business so it could continue to grow. But if she had violated her true purpose for money, for security, and had helped him, I don't know what the outcome would have been. It may have been that both of them would have experienced some real financial turbulence. That's just one example of how powerful it can be for you to be able to express, to know and express your true purpose for money. So, your true purpose for money statement communicates what you want to create for others. Isn't that fascinating? So, not only does it create it for yourself, but it communicates what you want to create for others. And she was able to create security in the story that I was telling you for her son, because she was able to not only to articulate her value, but to act in accordance with that value. And it symbolizes what you stand for in the world. And I can't think of any better testament to a single mom who did an amazing job raising her child, uh, that she was able to not only stand for security, but to pass security on to him. So it's absolutely an amazing, amazing realization to have your true purpose for money. So let me, before we go into the 20 must answer questions, which I think are very, very important, and I end all of my workshops with them, I just want to summarize. These are things that we all know, but we don't always act upon what we know. We know that money doesn't make people happy. We know that true happiness can only be realized in your life when you know your values and you bring your values into absolute alignment with your outward actions. Things like relationships, love, excitement, adventure. That's what brings fulfillment. Money is just a tool. That's all that it is. It's an energy. And when we use this tool purposefully, it helps to create the things that are most important to you. So, what is your true purpose for money? I hope that this has helped you think about that issue and given you some tools that will help you discover your true purpose for money. And I would love for you to share with me what that is. It would be great to hear from you. So feel free to contact me through email, to call me, or it'd be wonderful to come to one of our upcoming workshops and actually work through this with me again in a group setting. Well, let's turn our attention now to the 20 must answer questions. Now, ironically, the first question, hopefully you'll be able to answer, but have you discovered your true purpose for money? That which is more important than money itself. I hope now you have a better idea of what is the value, or what is the purpose behind this first question. Are you invested in the market? Most people can say yes, although it's not uncommon for me to meet someone who has all of their money sitting in a money market. I just met with clients last week who had almost um, their entire 401k amount sitting in a money market account. So if you are invested in the market, your funds are not sitting in a money market account, you can answer yes to question number two. Do you know how markets work? This is a simple question on one level, but also it's very complex. If you don't know how markets work, then be sure that you take the time and participate in one of our other video workshops that are on available online. Have you defined your investment philosophy? Everyone has investment philosophies about education, about family, about religion, about politics. You also should have one about your investment philosophy. Um, Clients need to have reviewed and to have signed an investment policy statement. If you don't know what that is, you haven't done one, then perhaps you are not clear about your investment philosophy, but you need to get clear about it because that's what's going to dictate how you invest and the decisions you make going forward. Do you know what your personal risk tolerance is? I don't mean that I'm aggressive or I'm conservative, but you should have an actual number, a standard deviation number that can be used to define how much risk is in your portfolio and whether you can accept that risk, whether you know what that risk is and it is actually suitable for you based on your personality, your overall financial situations, your goals, your ages, things like that. Do you know how to measure diversification in your portfolio? Sometimes people think if they have a lot of stuff, they're diversified. Well, there's actually a better system, a more scientific system that allows us to measure true diversification in your portfolio. Are you consistently and predictably achieving market returns? In a workshop not too long ago, a client asked me, well, what are market returns? And I said, well, with all due respect, if you don't know what market returns are, then I think you have to answer no to question number 7. Have you measured the total amount of commissions and costs in your portfolio? There are a lot of hidden costs, and if you don't know where to look, you don't see them. And I think it's very important for you to know what those are. For example, if you're paying 2 or 3% in fees, both in advisor fees and other hidden fees, and you were able to cut that in half or to lower it to 1%, wouldn't that be remarkable? Immediately your portfolio would be have a return of 1.5, 2% more with doing nothing more than cutting your fees. That's pretty remarkable when you think about it. Do you know where you fall in the Markowitz efficient frontier? This is a very, very, very useful tool in helping clients understand the amount of risk in their portfolio and also help to determine whether their portfolio is functioning on an efficient level. If you don't know what the Markowitz efficient frontier is, you owe it to yourself to educate yourself on that. Question number 10. When it comes to building your investment portfolio, do you know exactly what you're doing and why? Hopefully your investment experience is not like when I go to the grocery store. When I go to the grocery store, I kind of just walk down the aisle sometimes, and what looks good, I put it in. I don't really have any plan. I don't have any coherent structure of what I'm trying to do. I'm like, oh, that crunchy peanut butter looks good. Oh, those strawberries look good. Oh, that yogurt looks good. And when I get home, sometimes my wife will say, "What did you get?" Because when she goes to the store, she has a plan, and she knows what she's going to be cooking that week, and she knows what ingredients she needs. And I need to be more that way when I go to the grocery store, and investors need to be that way certainly when they're working with their investment portfolio and planning their family's future. Now, please don't be upset if you're getting no to a lot of these questions because it's not meant to make you feel bad. It's just meant to give us a starting point so you know what answers you have to go out and find. So the first time I took this, I think I got 3 answers correct, and I've done these questions at numerous workshops, often with financial people, lawyers, realtors, and most can only get 3 or 4 correct. So it's just a way for us to figure out where we need to go next and what questions you need to get answered. Are you working with a financial planner or a financial coach? In other words, are you working with someone who is looking at the big picture and helping you put all the pieces together? Question 12. Do you have a customized lifelong game plan to guide all of your investing and spending decisions? That's a pretty straightforward question. It's easy to understand what's being asked, but it's very hard to put it into effect. Do you have an investment policy statement? If you do you know where it is? Do you know what it says? If you don't, then you should find out what one is and determine whether you need one. I would recommend that you definitely need one between you and your advisor. Have you devised a clear cut method for measuring the success or failure of your portfolio? Often clients tell me, well, when they get their quarterly statement, they open up the statement, and if the count's gone up, then they're happy. If it's gone down, they're not happy. Actually, it's much more complicated than that to determine whether or not your portfolio is working or not. That it's very difficult to know whether your portfolio is working or not unless you know how it's designed, what the risk factors are, what the anticipated market returns would be. It's only if you know those numbers, that data, that you can then check and determine whether your portfolio is functioning as designed or not. Do you fully understand the implications and applications of diversification in your portfolio? There are 19 distinct asset categories. You're going to want global representation, of both equity and fixed income from the global economy. Do you know what those are? Do you know which areas you have represented in your portfolio, and maybe perhaps where you are lacking true diversification? Remember, having a lot of stuff is not the same thing as being truly diversified. Do you have a system, question 16, to measure portfolio volatility? It's like if you fly in an airplane, you sit by the wings, and you know the wings have to vibrate a little bit in order for the plane to fly. They can't vibrate too much, or the plane will crash. If they don't vibrate at all, the wings will break off. So how much volatility is inside of your portfolio, and is your portfolio functioning as designed, or is it functioning outside of the parameters? You need to know the answer to that question. Question 17. Are you aware of the costs associated with purchasing commission-based products? Doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't purchase them, but you need to know what the costs are so you can determine that whether or not this is in the best interest of you, for you and your family. 18. One of my earlier workshops dealing with the answer to this particular question, question 18, it's, do you know the 3 warning signs that you may be speculating with your money versus prudently investing it? And if you would like to go back and look at the workshop separating myths from truths of investing, it's in that particular workshop that I deal in a significant time with this particular question. So if you are engaged in stock picking, market timing, and track record investing, those are the 3 warning signs that you may be speculating with your money versus prudently investing it. Question 19. Can you identify the cultural messages and personal mindsets about money that destroy your investing peace of mind? So why is it that so many people that have significant assets are unhappy? What is it that destroys their investing peace of mind? I actually have another video workshop that you can also find online, and it deals with the answer to this question, or helps you deal with coming to terms with question number 19. And the last question, the only question I think that really needs to be answered in the affirmative for you to make progress, is, are you ready to shift your personal experience of money and investing from a scarcity mode to an abundance mode, where you can live your life rather than obsess about your assets? If you can answer yes to that question, you should pat yourself on the back, because you're ready to begin taking the next steps toward achieving true financial peace of mind for you and your family. So I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to work through this, I think, very, very, very important workshop with me. I'd love to have to hear any feedback that you might have. It'd be great for you to share with me your true purpose for money, and stories that you might be willing to share with me about times in your life when you've felt this dissonance between your inner value system and your outward actions. Again, great to talk to you. This is Dan Betzel with Betzel Wealth Advisors, creating confident investors. Thank you very much.